Hello, everyone. Have you ever just stopped and wondered how a single teeny tiny cell can eventually become something as massive as a giant redwood tree or, a complex human being? Well, today we're going to find out by diving deep into the incredible world of tissues.
I mean, really think about it. How does that happen? It's a question that gets right to the core of what it means to be alive. And the answer, it turns out, is all about the amazing power of teamwork, right down at the cellular level. We're about to see exactly how it all works. You can kind of think of it like building with Legos. It all starts with the smallest piece, the cell. Then a bunch of similar cells get together to form a team, and that team is a tissue. These tissues then combine to build bigger structures, like your heart or a plant's leaf. Those are the organs. And finally, all those organs work together to create the whole shebang, a complete functioning organism. So, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What exactly is a tissue? Let's break it down and really understand why this whole idea of cellular teamwork is so absolutely crucial for life. Okay, so here's the textbook definition, but honestly, I like to think of a tissue as a cellular supergroup. Like a band where every member has a very specific talent, but when they play together, they create something totally amazing.
And this is a perfect example of something we call division of labor. Seriously, think about planning a huge wedding. You'd have one team on food, another on decorations, right? You wouldn't ask the caterer to also handle the music. Well, our bodies are just that organized. They assign specific jobs to different tissues to make sure everything runs perfectly.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's see how this whole concept of tissues plays out in two very different kingdoms of life, plants and animals, because their blueprints for building a body are surprisingly different. And it really all comes down to their lifestyle. I mean, plants pretty much stay in one spot, right? So they need less energy. And, get this, they actually rely on a lot of dead, supportive tissues just to stay upright. Animals, on the other hand, we're mobile. We're always on the move, and that requires a ton of energy and tissues made of mostly living cells. This even affects how we grow. Plants tend to grow from specific spots, while animals grow more or less all over. So let's kick things off with the plant kingdom. How in the world do they grow so tall and strong? Well, it all comes down to a very special team of tissues that are basically dedicated growth machines. You can split plant tissues into two main groups. First, you've got meristematic tissues. Think of these as the construction zones of the plant, just full of cells that are constantly dividing and growing. And then you've got permanent tissues. These are where the cells have grown up, matured, and settled into a specific long-term job. And to remember the three types of those growth tissues, the meristematic ones, just think of the name alley. That's A for apical, L for lateral, and I for intercalary. Let's check out what each of them does. So what's the deal with our ALI tissues? Well, apical meristems are found at the very tips of roots and shoots, and their job is to make the plant taller. Lateral meristems are all about making the stem and roots wider, increasing its girth. And intercalary meristems, they help lengthen the sections between nodes. You can see this super clearly on a stalk of bamboo or sugarcane. Okay, so we've seen how plants get bigger. But what about the tissues that do all the day-to-day work to keep the plant alive and thriving? Let's meet the permanent crew. This whole process of a cell basically choosing its career has a name. It's called differentiation. This is that moment when a growing cell finally matures. It stops dividing, and it takes on a permanent, specialized role in the plant. For the simple permanent tissues, that just means tissues made of only one type of cell, we've got another handy acronym for you, PCS. This stands for parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. So let's look at what they do. Parenchyma cells, they're basically the pantry. They're all about storing food. Collenchyma provides that flexible, bendy support you feel in leaf stalks that lets them sway in the wind without snapping. And sclerenchyma is all about being tough and hard, creating things like the protective husk of a coconut. And then we have the complex permanent tissues, which are basically the plant's plumbing and delivery system.
Xylem is like a one-way street, pulling water and minerals straight up from the roots to the rest of the plant. Phloem, on the other hand, is a two-way highway, moving the food made in the leaves both up and down to wherever the plant needs it.
Phew, okay. Now that we've explored the plant blueprint, let's switch gears completely and take a quick look at the 4 major tissue types that make up our own bodies and the entire animal kingdom.
So, in the animal world, it really all boils down to 4 main types, and each one has a super clear job. You've got epithelial tissue, which is recovering things, like our skin. There's connective tissue, which is for support. Think bone, and even blood is a connective tissue. Then there's muscular tissue, which is pretty obvious. It allows for all our movement. And finally, nervous tissue, the body's high-speed internet, sending messages everywhere in a flash.
So after all that, which of these tissues is the most important one for survival? It's a tough question, right? And that's because the real answer, the big takeaway, is all of them. They all are. From the simplest plant to the most complex animal, life is just this beautiful, complicated collaboration where every single team, every single tissue is absolutely essential to the whole.
Think carefully and write your answer in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, share it with your friends and subscribe for more. Thank you.